Hello, my name is AESSEKI, or you can just call me Seki, and I'm gonna show you a speed paint and commentary of a challenge, a draw this in your style challenge I did for artofploop on Twitter. I hope you enjoy my process, and let's go! So if you noticed, I start out with a purple line art. I do this because black tends to be really intimidating, but I do switch it up and you'll see later. But I think especially if you're a beginner, choose depending on your vibe, that's where the color of your line art will depend on. So go ahead and look up some artists and your favorite artworks with line art to decide, are you more of a colored line art person or a black line art person. Personally, for me, it's both. You'll see later. Okay, so now you see here that I'm coloring, and I really don't trust the bucket tool. I'm sorry. So you're gonna get some coloring book action over here. And I'm shading skin, and if you'll notice, I'm not using purple. There's so many tutorials that I used to see when I was younger. They are shading with purple, just out purple. And purple, I actually use it too, but here's why I don't necessarily use a dark purple. I use saturated oranges, reds, and purples most of the time to shade, because if you use a dark purple, especially if you're not gonna use it in high opacity, it's gonna end up looking muddy because it's already kind of unsaturated, and you're gonna lower the opacity afterwards. That's why it looks muddy. So I use saturated colors because even though I tone down the opacity, you still see it after and it doesn't look muddy. So I guess that's just my basic tip. I might release the color palettes I use, or you could just screenshot my video, I guess, and just grab my palette. But the palettes I use now are a bit more dynamic than the one here. Essentially my process is still the same, but the colors are a bit more developed now in 2021. Remember, this was back in 2020, but I still very much enjoyed drawing this. Okay, so I'm just gonna speed this up a bit because it's hair, it's nothing interesting that much. But the thing I do for hair is I see them as groups and not as individual strands. I see newer artists doing every single strand, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I think what beginner artists should do is learn how to group hair, so you'll be able to evaluate the individual strands better when you're doing that. And yeah, I airbrush on the generally shaded parts like the scalp, the back hairs, and if my character has curly hair where the hair curls on, you don't have to shade everything. Yeah, and that's it for the hair. It's kind of simple. I shade and highlight in groups as well. So so here you can see that I'm highlighting with a pure color. Okay, no shade, but some artists use luminosity layer to highlight everything. And for me, highlighting with luminosity layer isn't bad, but purely relying on that layer setting is a good first step. But if you want to get more into how colors work and understanding the fundamentals, I recommend highlighting with a pure color and then going in with a luminosity layer later. So here you can see I duplicated my line art folder twice and I merged them. So the second one that is still purple is just for thickness, because initially my purple layer was kind of not opaque, it was kind of transparent, and it was kind of thin. And then the third layer, the third merge layer of line art is I turn it to black and then I erase some parts of it. So the purple, the initial purple peeks through, and I think that's kind of like my trademark when I do my art. And here's where my process gets a little complicated, because after I seem to have finished like doing the shading and all, I go back and on top of every layer that I did earlier, I would add details that I couldn't do back when I was coloring. So here you can see now I'm purely relying on the luminosity layer to create my strands. I told you guys, using luminosity layer isn't necessarily a bad thing. I didn't purely rely on the luminosity layer to add the highlight to the eyes, but what I did, instead of pure color, I used an already existing luminosity layer to add those shine, and then on top of that, to give the luminosity effect, I put the dots for the eye shines again. So yeah, after that, if I make mistakes, I tend to just cover it up at the very last second with the last layer, and I tend to thicken up the line art with color black because I think that's really interesting. If you're settling with having light art in your art, I recommend studying varying the thinness and thickness, because lines can draw attention of your viewers to certain parts of your art. If you noticed, I'm adding details that are textured. I think the balance of both smooth brushes and textured brushes really gives my art, especially my art, its flavor. So go ahead, if you're color smooth, add a textured shadow or something, mix it up. It's a fun, spicy little thing to do. So yeah, I'm just finishing up here and we're done. Hey, if you've made it up to this part, I hope you've already liked and subscribed to me. And this was really my very first speed paint. I recorded this in 2020, but I've been shying away from it because I just, can't seem to find the motivation to do it. So I was like, hey, are you gonna do this or not? Okay, I'm gonna do it. So this is unscripted, almost unedited, impromptu talked through. So yeah, if you have any questions about my process, please do let me know or comment down below, and share this with your friends, and don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope to make more of these, so see you soon. Bye bye.